What's up, guys? My name is Aleck. You want to be a web designer? I want to teach you how to write code. In this video, I'm going to show you how to turn a Figma file or a design file into an HTML website. So let's get started.
Okay, so let me just show you what we're going to be building in this tutorial. This is a Figma file or a Figma project that I have designed. It's in dark mode. Well, most developers have dark mode websites. And again, we're going to be building something very responsive. So this is the desktop view. It will show just above the fold or the hero section, just the name and just quick description. And we'll have a call to action button right underneath. Under that, we are going to have the About Me section. And yes, you must have seen here at Aleck. That's my wife. She is learning code as well. So I'm building a portfolio website for her. Great. So just underneath that, we have the About Me section. Just a quick description of who she is, the quick languages. Let me just zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. Again, we have these cards right underneath the About section. Okay, and then her picture. We should be able to add some animation on the picture. And underneath that, we should have the my experience, which correlates with the experience tab right on top. And then again, it will show the company that they're working for, the position, the duration, and some responsibilities. And just before we end the document, it should show the my work section with just some projects that she has done. So she's going to populate this as soon as we are done here. And right at the bottom, there is a contact call to action rather. So as soon as somebody clicks here, again, we're going to add in some very nice animation on the bottom. And right underneath, we have designed and built by Aleck. Okay. Like I said, this is going to be mobile first design. So this is what we're going to start designing first before we see this. So yeah, it should be responsive regardless of whatever platform you're working on or device that you're working on, rather mobile, desktop, tablet. So yeah, this is what we're going to be building in this tutorial. So if you're just starting, what you will need is VS Code or any text editor. There are several text editors that are out there. There is Sublime Texts, there is Atom, there's VS Code, but by far VS Code is my favorite, right? So you're just gonna Google VS Code, and once you've done that, what you will need is to download VS Code. So VS Code works in several operating systems, Mac OS. It works on Windows and it works on Linux as well. Once you have downloaded VS Code, I will need you to open your VS Code, right? I will use a shortcut, a very nice shortcut. I have navigated into my tutorials, so I'm just gonna create a directory right here. Create directory. I'm gonna name it portfolio. YT is for just YouTube. Okay, so I can differentiate my project. I'm gonna get into the project, so I'm gonna say portfolio underscore YT, and I will say code dot. So that opens my VS Code. So as soon as you open VS Code, there are a few things that I need you to install, or a few extensions, VS Code extensions that I will need you to install. These are the extensions that I do have, which I think are very important. For my theme, I'm using an Atom one dark theme and auto rename tag. But what's important is I need you to install Prettier. Prettier has been downloaded 13 million times. This just makes our code look better. and readable rather. And then the second thing I need you to install is Live Server. Live Server allows us to run our website from any file or from any directory so that we can take a look at our website in real time. So as we're coding our website, we should be seeing the changes coming out on the web page. Okay, so once we have installed that, now in my case, I have installed everything. I will create a new file. Okay, I will create index.html. So that's the base file that I'm going to be using. And VS Code comes with a very cool extension called Emmet. So Emmet helps us with our boilerplate code. In your browser, I need you to type in !, and then enter. So what that does is it creates a boilerplate for our HTML. So boilerplate, more of a starting point rather. Okay, so we're not going to worry much about the head tag, because this is just where the information, you're telling the browser the information about your website. Things like Google crawling or Google search engine optimization. This is where you're putting your description, different meta tags rather. Okay, once you've done that, I will need you to save the file. Once you've saved the file, sometimes Live Server doesn't show right at the bottom here. I'm going to zoom into my code so you guys can see. So you guys can see better. There we go. Right underneath there, you should expect a Live Server. I haven't found a way to get it work when you create an HTML file like that. But if you guys know how to do that, please let me know. But if it doesn't work for you, just close the window and then open your VS Code again. Right, once it has opened, I think Live Server should be starting. There we go. So I'm just gonna click go live. It's gonna open on the side, and there we have our website. So the good thing about Live Server is when you type in something within your website, for example, I'm just gonna say h1 and say hello world. Hello world. If I save that in, it refreshes the web page for us. So that's super helpful. Okay. So let's just jump into creating our website. So the very first thing that we need to do is, of course, change the title, because right now it says document. I don't like that. So let's just say, well, this could be your name. In this case, it's Aleck and portfolio, or maybe just Aleck. I think that's fine. There we go. So as soon as you do that, it replaces the Aleck right on top there. Fantastic. So what we need to do is we need to create our boilerplate, or our code rather. So you want to go into your body, because that's where most of your code is going to run. All right. So if we go back and take a look at the design, we should see, okay, let me open it now. There we go. We should see this here. So we have this section. So in as much as the mobile first approach, well, when we're designing the page itself, we should be designing together with all the components that are required. But when we're writing our CSS, we write our CSS based on mobile first, right? So this is what we see on a desktop. Yeah. So we have this section. Let me just take a rectangle so we can show what we're talking about. We have this section over here that becomes more or less like our header, right? You agree? Awesome. And then we have a different section again, this section. So we want to write our code in sections. Okay. Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a header, right, in our code. Again, I'm just going to open there we go. So we're going to create a header. Once we've created the header, there are few things that are in our header. we have the logo itself. So I'm just going to create an A tag. An A tag is just a link, and the href attribute is where the link is supposed to take us. When you put in the value of the href as hash, it does not go anywhere. Okay, so when somebody clicks on it, it does not redirect, it does not go anywhere. And I'm just going to give it a class of logo. The reason why we put classes on HTML tags is so that we can target the classes in our CSS, so we can style it. All right. Then I'm just going to put our logo as H. So as soon as I do that, you see that my H starts popping out right in our browser. Awesome. Okay. Next, we do have a toggle. The toggle in this case, I'm going to put it in a div, and I'm going to put a class of toggle. Yeah, that works. And this toggle is the open toggle. So like I said, we do have two views, right? We have got the mobile and we've got the desktop. So the toggle that we're creating is this one right there. All right, awesome. Right, moving along. So toggle open, that's fantastic. Now next, I need to put in the toggle itself, like a hamburger icon, right? I have some icons that I had downloaded right in my downloads folder. There we go. Right in my downloads folder, I've got a menu.svg. There we go. So I do not want to use this as a whole file. I want to use it in SVG right in my HTML. So I'm going to right click this one and open with VS Code. So I've opened my SVG code. I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to paste it right in my div. If I save it, you see what Prettier does. It formats our code for us. Okay. I'm just going to activate line breaking so that you guys can be able to see what I'm doing. All right. I'm going to remove the height on the SVG. I'm going to remove the width on the SVG as well, so that it becomes plain and so that we can style it in our CSS. Fantastic. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to put in the navigation part of the site. Okay. So I'm just going to create a new HTML tag and I'm going to call it nav. I'm not going to give it a class because I don't think I'll use more than one navs in this file. And then the very first thing that we need to come on top of the nav in mobile view is another toggle as well. So this is like the closing toggle of the application. So remember, we had an opening toggle and now we need to put a closing toggle. So I give it the same class but with a new class called cancel. Great. Again, inside this cancel div, I will need to put in an SVG as well. So I'm going to use this one, cancel.svg, open it up like so, and then copy this SVG right there, paste it in. Prettier does the magic for us. So I'm going to remove the fill, X and Y, that's fine. Awesome, save. Great. I know this is not looking good, so just bear with us, guys. We just want to pretty much write all our HTML code and then just start designing everything. That's my approach rather. Okay. Awesome. So the very next thing that we need to put in after the toggle is the menu that comes right underneath or next to depending on what screen size we're looking at, right? So what we need to do is to create an unordered list. Okay, the difference between an unordered list and an ordered list, because you have this ordered list and you have also an ordered list. An ordered list puts numbers on each item, for example, yeah. But in an ordered list, just puts in pointers on each list item. So I'm gonna use an ordered list, and I'll give it a class of site nav. Perfect. After that, I'm going to put in an li, which is a list item. That's an li tag, and the li tag is going to nest a link. So I'm just going to put in a link there. The href is going to be hash. Okay, sorry, oops. About, and this one is about. Okay, I'm going to give it a class as well of site link, so that we can be able to style it or use it in our JavaScript, whatever we want to do. One trick though in adding multiple lines or copying the same line down is to hold Shift and Option. In Windows, I think it's Shift and Control, and arrow down. So that just copies the line as you go down. Okay, the next menu is going to be experience. Oops, if we knew how to spell, is that the spelling? Yeah, perfect. Experience, my work, great. And we have contact, and we have resume. Okay, we don't need the extra resume there. I'm gonna give this one an extra class of btn, just because in our code we do have this btn as a different. It looks different from the rest of the links. Okay, just gonna pull back view so we can take a look. There we have it. So like I said, the unordered list just puts in pointers right next to each list item. Okay, that looks like our header is done, right? Fantastic. Right, moving along. If we go back to view, we see that this whole section, right in this whole section, okay, this whole section that we see here, I'm just going to remove this and give it a stroke. So this whole section that has a white border, as you can see, everything is within a certain view width, right? So there is the same width on the left and the same width on the right. So it's like there's a container that's right inside or containing our content. Okay, so what we need to do is to create a main site container, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a div and give it a class. Give it a class of main container, and inside the main container, that's where we're gonna put on pretty much put in everything that we need in our site. Okay, so the very first thing that we need to do is to now create the hero section. Awesome. And inside the hero section, I'm going to create another div and give it a class of hero container. Inside of the hero container, we're going to create another div again, give it a class of hero top section. So this is the top section, and we're going to create a span, and the span is going to be greater than sign and say hi. Let me just open up some space here so you guys can be able to see the content within my span. Hi, my name is Harriet Aleck. Okay, my name is and then I'll put in another span. Span, and give it some space, / greater than sign. Okay, perfect. That's the top section done, right? The hero top section rather. And then underneath that, we're gonna put in the hero title. So I'm gonna say div class of hero title, and I'll give my title Harriet Aleck, and then full stop. So as we scroll down, this is what it looks like. Okay, so these are the spans that we have created. Let me just zoom in a little bit so you guys can see as well. So there we go. So I say hi. So this is the span that we're going to use, and this is the span, the first span, and the second span is the / greater than sign. So I've wrapped them inside of a span so that we can be able to class them and show the different colors, like that yellow color. Okay, awesome. Moving along, after Harriet Aleck, or the hero title, we're gonna have a subtitle. Okay, so I'm gonna say div class of hero subtitle, and the subtitle in this case is I build things for the web. Awesome. That's done, and I'll put in a paragraph and say a professional. Professional. Awesome. So once that is in, beautiful. I'm just going to zoom out. Fantastic. Okay, and underneath that we have an anchor tag. The anchor tag is going to have I'm going to give it a hash of contact, because we're going to create a div that we're going to give an ID of contact and a class of custom CTA, custom call to action, CTA. Okay, inside we're going to have an SVG, right? The SVG in this case, we're going to copy from here, and it should be right arrow, I think. Yes, right arrow, and I'm just gonna copy the SVG like so, paste it in, save it in. So we remove the color so that we can style it ourselves rather. Right, underneath we'll need to put an inner span and then say get in touch. There we go. Perfect. So hero section looks like the hero section is done. Okay, so right underneath this one, just give some space and then say hero section, and then we come here and say about section. Very important to comment your code, guys. Always want to tell the next developer what you were doing. Okay, moving along, we're going to create a section in this case and give it an ID of about. So the reason why we're giving the ID of about is so that when somebody clicks on the about, and this one's supposed to be experience, and my work, and then contact, and this isn't going anywhere at the moment. I'm going to save that in. So the reason why we've put in the ID of about is so that when somebody clicks on the about that's here, the page should scroll to this section. Okay, so that's the reason why we put hash first, and then the name of the ID value of the section that we want to navigate to. Right inside the about section, let's just take a look at our site again. We have got these. We've got this title that's over there. We've got these paragraphs, and we've got another paragraph there, and then we've got these cards that we put in here. And on the right side, we have images that we use. We have an image that we have right on the right side. So let's get into doing that. All right. So we create our first class as section title, and give it a title of about me. And underneath the about me section, we create a div, give it a class of about section. Fantastic. And underneath that, or the left side of the about section, is going to be about content. And inside the about content, I have a paragraph, and I'm going to say hello, my name is Harriet. Sorry guys, you just have to bear with me. So once you're done, we'll create the last p tag, and say here are some technologies that I've been working on recently. Awesome. So right underneath that, we create a div, give it a class of technologies. Technology. Yeah, that sounds better. Technology cards. And these are just a bunch of spans. Okay, so I'll say React, and then I'll create more spans. Just again, Shift Option down arrow. So I'm just gonna say this one is React, this one is JavaScript with ES6 plus. Awesome. And this one is gonna be Vue for Vue.js, and this one is gonna be Tailwind CSS. Oops, guys, it's been a long day. Tailwind CSS and Node.js, and the last one is going to be WordPress. Okay, so these are the languages that I've worked with, that she has worked with recently. Okay, awesome. So after the about content, all right, underneath here, what we're gonna do is we need to then put in the image, right? So let's give it a class. I'll just scroll it up again so you guys can be able to see properly. You don't need the source control to show. Explorer, there we go. Perfect. I'm gonna give this one a class of about image. Yeah, about. Oops, guys. About image, and I'll create another div, give it a class of image wrapper. Inside of the image wrapper, that's where I'm going to put in the image. Okay, I already have an image that I pre-downloaded, which is a profile image. So I'm just going to copy this image into my folder. There we go. Okay, once I've pasted my code, I'm gonna reference it in my image source on the src attribute and say image, and the alt is gonna be her name, which is in our case Aleck. Okay, so we should start to see a picture coming in. Okay, and some of those icons that we had. Okay, perfect. Then the next section, we're pretty much done with that section. So the next section that we're going to be creating is the experience section. So not an ID, not in class, but an ID of experience. Experience. Let me just confirm that it matches with my experience. Perfect. So inside of the experience section, I'm gonna give it a div or the title that we just created, which is this one, the section title, because they pretty much look the same right across the site. So the title is going to be my experience, and then we create a div with a class name of tab layout, because the section that we're trying to create is more or less like a tab layout. So we've got these tab links and then tab layouts that change when I click on Apple or when I click on Amazon, when I click on Google. The content that's inside the tab, it should be able to change. Okay, so we have a tab layout that we have created. So the first thing that we need is the tab titles, the titles that we click on. Yeah, so I say class and then say tab titles, like so. And inside our tab titles, these are gonna create more divs and give it a class. The class is gonna be tab title, and the first one is going to be active, and the name is going to be or the text is going to be Facebook. Again, I'm just going to copy that, shift option, arrow key down, 1 2 3 4. Great. This one is going to be Apple, and this one is going to be Amazon, and this one is going to be Netflix, and the last one being Google. These ones do not need any active, so there we go. Fantastic. Let's take a look at our design as we scroll down. So we have the title that's in there. I know it looks crappy, but we're going to jump into our CSS quite soon. We're almost right at the end of the page. And the next section is, of course, the tab content. Okay, so the tab content, like so. So I'm just going to create 2 tabs for now, so that you guys can be able to create the rest of the tabs. All right, so I'm going to create the first one for Facebook. Okay, so I'm just going to say div class, and maybe this one is going to be, well, I don't know, job card, and then it's going to be active, of course, and we need to just give it an ID of maybe Facebook. And inside the job card, we have a few things. So we have the title, we have the duration, and we have the responsibilities. Awesome. So inside my job card, I'm going to put in the job title. So create a new div, give it a class of job, job title, and job title, and the job title is going to be junior developer, and then say front end span space / so that we can create these 2 forward slashes there. I'm wrapping them in a span so that I can be able to target them likewise, and then say the company is Facebook, like that. Then the next thing that we need is the duration. So I'm just going to say div, give it a class of the job duration, and in this case it's going to be May 2018 right up to present day. We can say present day. Awesome. Next, we do have an unordered list that I'm going to give a class of responsibilities, like so. Make sure I've typed in the right spelling, and then we're going to have a bunch of LIs. And with Emmet, or with VS Code and Emmet, you can type in lorem, like so, and then click enter. So it creates a boilerplate text for you. So I'm just gonna hold shift and option and down, maybe just 4 times, so we can have 4 items in our list. And sorry guys, we're supposed to be seeing this, and there we go. Awesome. Then the next job card that I'm going to create is the next company is Apple. Awesome. Apple, and this could be junior developer backend. Backend, and this could be May 2016 to May. Did I say 2016? 2016 to May 2018. Okay, so once you've done that, we have got junior developer front end Facebook, junior developer front end back end at Apple, and this one isn't active. Okay, and this one has an ID of Apple. Awesome, guys. So that section, believe you me, it's done. All right. So the very next section that we need to create, let's just take a look at our file again, is this my work section. So the my work, we need to create these cards. For the design purposes, I'm going to create one card first, and then once that looks fine, we'll create the rest of the 5 items. Okay, so I'm just gonna put in the title and then create the card. All right, awesome. So let's head on over and create our section. Just scroll up again so you guys can see. This one, I'm gonna give it an ID of my work. Just to confirm if we're using the same ID, my work, perfect. And then right inside, I'm gonna create a div, give it a class of section title, and my work. Okay, once we've done that, now we need to create the cards, right? So I'm just gonna, but the card, they're more of in a div or in a grid setup, like a row and columns. So in this case, we have got rows and we've got columns. So we need to put them in the grid, in a grid system. So I'm just gonna create the wrapping grid, which is the div, and give it a class of work section. All right, inside the work section, I will create the individual work card, right? So this one becomes work card, right? Inside the work card, we have the top section. I'm just gonna zoom in, guys, so you guys can see. Again, there we go. Okay, so we've got this top section on the top card, and we've got the title and then the description rather, and then we've got the technologies again that we used in creating this project. Okay, also on the work on the work card, we have got the work top section, the top section of the work card. So I'm just going to give it a name of work top, like so, and I'll put in an SVG. Downloads, and I'll find my folder .svg. Okay, open it with VS Code. I'm gonna copy it and paste it in, save that in, remove my fill, and do we have any height? No. Perfect. So moving along, so just underneath the SVG, I'm gonna put in a span, and inside the span we put in an A tag. The A tag can be linked to your project link or project example prototype that you're working on, right? So maybe you want to show them the site itself that you have created. Okay, so the link or the prototype or the product. Inside the link, we have an SVG that we're going to put in again, and this SVG is exit to top. I will open my VS Code with VS Code, copy the SVG, paste it in, save that file. Do we have a height and a width? No. Colors, we'll leave it there for now. It's not a big deal. Right, maybe we'll want to remove these items. So one trick is Command F, like so. Click the arrow button and replace everything. You're done. Okay, perfect. So after the let me collapse the worktop so we can continue with our work. So after the worktop, we've got the work title. Okay, so I'm just going to say div, give it a class of work title, and let me close that. And the work title in our case is just lorem ipsum again, but I'll limit it to the first sentence. Underneath that, we have the project description. which I'm going to say lorem ipsum, like so. Let's take a look at what's coming out. So we've got the folder, we've got the link that goes out, we've got the title and the description right underneath. Right after the description, we are going to put in the work technologies. Okay, so class of work technologies. Awesome. And in the side of the technologies, I'm going to say create React and just paste them in. Okay, and say Tailwind CSS, and then say Firebase. Yeah, we are going to be working with React, Tailwind, and Firebase in the next tutorials. So just a quick reminder, please subscribe to the channel so you won't miss those really cool tutorials. Awesome. Looks like the work card is complete, guys. Can you imagine? So the work card is complete. So I'm just gonna, I know I said one, let me just create two, just so that we can see that the grid is working the way it's supposed to work. Okay, all right, before we end our file, we have, I think, the contact me section. Okay, so you see the difference between this section and the other sections is it has this very subtle dark color that's underneath it. So to achieve this, we will need to get out of the container. Remember, the container was wrapping everything inside of this big container. So we need to get out of the container and then put in the container after we've put in the background. So I will go on this div outside. So this div here is the end. Okay, hold on. Is the end. Okay, like so. So we're gonna end main container like here, so you guys can see. So oops, so that's the ending of the main container, which we opened somewhere here. Okay, so let's just say start main container. So starting the main container over there, and it closes right there. So after that, we will create a contact section so that we can be able to receive messages from potential employers or potential clients. So I'm going to create a div, give it a class name of contact section and an ID of contact, and then from there we'll now have access to the background. Okay, so after that we then say div, and again we do the main container, main container, like so. There we go. So after the main container, I'm gonna create a new section inside, and this section doesn't have a class. I don't think we should. Let's give it a section title. So this one is going to be div. Give it a class of a section title, and the section title is going to be let's talk. There we go. Let's talk. Perfect. Right. So we're going to need to put in an h1 and say contact me. Oops, guys, at least you guys are supposed to be seeing this. Contact me, and I'll create a p tag, and then just put in some lorem ipsum for now, and then underneath the p tag we will need to then put in a call to action. So I'm just going to search CTA again so that we can copy our CTA like so. Underneath the paragraph tag, or the paragraph tag, we are going to say doc, and when someone clicks on this one, we want it to mail to. Okay, full colon, and say example example at gmail.com. So you can replace this email with your email address. That should get you started, and that should get you receive emails easy. So we're going to create the footer, and inside the footer we're going to give it a class again of main container, so that we can exit the background. As you can see right underneath that, we've got a darker background on the footer. Okay, so for us to exit this light background, we have to exit the div that we have created, the contact section div. Okay, all right, moving along, we're going to create a p tag and say designed and built by Aleck. Okay, perfect, guys. If you're done, this is the entire HTML. So HTML, again, if you don't know what HTML is, it's just a building block. So these are all the building blocks that we do need for our website. So for us to start styling this, we use CSS. So CSS just stands for cascading style sheet. Okay, so for us to create a new cascading style sheet, we need to link it inside the head of our project file or from our index.html. So right on top of the title or anywhere inside the head tag, you will need to type in link and select the CSS one. Okay, that pre-fills with an href of style.css. I'm going to save that file. Once I've saved that file, I'll go onto my Explorer tab inside of VS Code and create the plus icon. You can do this, or you can right click into the blank file and then create a new file. Okay, but I'm going to click this one, and the file that I need to create should be style.css, similar to what we've just created here. So I'm going to say style.css, and then there we go. Just so we can see that our style.css is working, I am going to give the of the body a background color of tomato. So save. So as you can see, guys, now our background is just working fantastically. So let's get into writing our CSS. Okay, so the very first thing that we need to do with our CSS is to import our fonts. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to Google Fonts. Oops, guys, Google Fonts. Just browse to Google Fonts and click on the first link you see, and I'm going to be using Poppins, the Poppins font. I need the 100 one. Yeah, I do need the 100 one, and I need the 400 regular, and I need semi-bold 600 and bold 700. Right, once you've done that, you need to click on where it says import, copy the stuff that's inside the style tags, the opening tag and the closing tag. Just copy the import there, go into a style and just paste it in. So as soon as you do that, it imports literally the whole font into your CSS. So the next thing that we need to do is to import our styles, our CSS variables. So to create CSS variables, you say full colon and then say root and enter. Okay. So there are a few CSS variables that I'm going to create. So to do that, you say dash and then say bg color. And the first color is going to be hash 102 right 432. I guess 432 terminate. So once you've done that, you see it does that. Done. Okay. So you guys can see and create your own CSS variables as you go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to do a few cleanups, okay? Because if you go back to our site, you'll see that it's not really, the page isn't really at like, there's like a padding on top of the H, as you can see. Like there's a space on top of the H, there's a space in the left of the H. So things aren't really sitting the way I want to do. Okay, so I'm just going to do some cleanup first. And I'm going to say HTML and the body. So I'm going to target the body and the HTML. So the first thing that I need to do is to give it a margin of 0 and a padding of 0. Save that in. As you can see, now it's touching the top and the left, so that we can put our own margins. Okay. Next is, I want it when I click on the about section, I don't want it to jump like that. I want it to smoothly scroll. Okay, so for us to do that, we say scroll behavior and say smooth. Save that in. Let's test it out. About section. There we go. Perfect. Right. Next, we want to put in a background color of var bg color, like so, and we want to give the default color as var text color. Perfect. And the font size is going to be, in our case, 100%. And the font weight, the font weight is going to be 400. And the font family is going to be Poppins. Okay, so there we go. So if I save that in, you see all my text has changed to white, except for links, which we'll need to target them separately, and just so that we can start cleaning up the site. Okay, fantastic. So I'm gonna use the statics to target pretty much everything in the site. So it's star after, and then star before. So I'm targeting everything inside, and then say box sizing, border box. So this just makes our site better and responsive, right? Next, I'm gonna target the A tags, including this one is an A tag, the link, the A tag, the A at focus, and then A at target, and then I'm going to say color. I'm going to give it a color of inherit. So it's just going to inherit the color that we have defined inside of our body, like so. So as you can see, everything in our file should be white, except again for the SVGs, okay, which we'll need to clean up separately. Okay, so as we scroll into our site, we'll see I want to clean up a few things, like the ULs, and there we go, like the ULs and stuff like that. So maybe before we do that, let me just remove the underline underneath every A tag. So we are going to do text decoration of none. Okay, perfect. Once you've done that, I'm going to target my UL, and my li. Okay, so I'm going to reset the margin to 0, and again reset the padding to 0, like so. There we go. And the list style again is going to be none. I don't want any list styles for now. I'm going to target every paragraph, and I'm going to give it an opacity of 0.7. So as you could see, the paragraphs in our design, let me just jump into our design. These are the paragraphs that I'm talking about. They look a little lighter than the normal text, so we just want to make them, give them opacity of, you see, this is a paragraph, that's a paragraph. It's not really too white, So that's why we're giving it an opacity of 0.7. Okay. Next, let's start coding. So we're gonna say header, or target the header rather. And inside the header, I'm just gonna give it a height of 4M. Once I do that, it's gonna overlap because of course now the header has been given a height. Or maybe before I do that, let me give it a display of flex, like so. So everything is now going in one linear direction or horizontally, because by default flex is flex direction of raw, so it goes from left to right. Okay, I'm gonna align my items center, like so, and I'm gonna put in a margin of 0 and a padding top and bottom of 0, left and right of 1M. You should note though, 1M is it's what I recommend when you're using or doing CSS, M's and or M's, whatever you can say. Before that, let me just say justify content and say space between. And then after that, let me say position of relative, like so. Why I'm saying position relative, because we have got some things that we're going to be position absolute, so they need to be absolute relatively to the header rather. Okay, so the align center is literally just putting things in alignment, like so. As you can see, our H is now somewhere in the middle of everything. So let's move on along. Let's start coding the logo. So I'm just gonna say dot logo, and first of all, oops, sorry guys, and I'm gonna say font size, and the font size is gonna be 1.75M, and the color is going to be var accent color. If I save that in, you start seeing the color that's coming in. And I'll give it a border of 3 pixels, solid, and again it's the same color, like so. Not looking exactly how you want it to look, so let's give it a height of maybe 1.5M and a width again of 1.5M, like so. Okay, let's move along. Let's give it a display of flex, and we also want to align item center and justify content center again, just so we can center the stuff, and a border radius of 5 pixels. We do want to put in a transition there because we're going to put in some nice hover effect on the logo, and the transition is going to be based on the color, and it's going to be 0.35 seconds long, and it's going to be off ease in and out. Save that in. Okay, fantastic. Moving along. I'm gonna say dot logo on hover. Now that's where we'll change the color. That's the reason why we put in the transition. So the color is going to be var text color. So if we hover on top of it, you see it changes to like a saddle white. That's exactly what we wanted to do. Okay, next we're gonna target the toggle, okay, or the toggler, or the toggle, and in our case the toggle is gonna have a cursor pointer, like so, and yeah, that's what we want to do for now. And after that, let's now target the SVG within the toggle. In the SVG, we need to give it a fill of the text color. Yeah, text color will do. And then we need to give it a height because it's pretty much taking over the whole space there. Let's give it a height of 1.5 m and a width of 1.5 m as well. So as soon as we do that, now we see our logo is coming out better. Okay, awesome. Okay, I want to touch on the cancel logo though. Toggle dot cancel. It should be dot cancel. Dot cancel, and I'm gonna give it a margin. Margin bottom or top and bottom of 1 m, left and right of 0. Perfect. So that we can just give it a space between the console and the menu. Okay, perfect. Once we've done that, let's start styling the navigation. Okay, so the nav is going to have a width of 100% by default, and it will span with a maximum width of 80 viewpoint width. Sorry, there we go. And the position is going to be fixed because we don't want it to scroll. Fixed. And the background, not the background attachment, the background rather, the background is going to be of var light background color. Perfect. And the position from the top is going to be 0, and the position from the right is going to be negative 80%, negative 80 viewpoint width. I'm going to comment this out for now, just so that we don't want it to get out of our view. And position from the bottom is going to be 0, and the height is going to be 100%, and the padding is going to be 1 m. Perfect. Let's just give it a transition so that we can be able to transit between view the toggle. When we click on the toggle, when the nav shows into our view, it should be able to smoothly scroll in. Okay, I'm going to give it the same duration, 3.5 seconds, and then ease in and ease out. So it will ease in and it will ease in out. Okay, so I'm just going to style this in. I will that looks good, guys. It looks pretty good. Don't worry about that. We'll solve it in just now. Okay, perfect. Let's now give this height a 4m, and then let's remove our view, and then we do that. Perfect. So that goes out of view for now. So we will continue with that view later on. Okay. Next is we now want to style in the site nav, itself. Maybe we just pull it in a little bit. The right. Okay. It's because the right should be 0 by default, so it pumps in right to the side there. Maybe we could put in a Z index of 100, so we can make sure it's absolutely on top of everything else. So again, let's style in the links nav. Maybe dot site nav LIA, and in this case we're going to say padding 0.5 m, and top and bottom 0, left and right, and then we're going to give it a display of block. All right, once we've done that, it just gives some space to the site. There we go. So that's the sidebar done, guys. I'm going to remove the the right there and closing the nav. Okay, perfect. So next, I want to style in the main container, or the stuff that goes inside of the main container rather. Perfect. Okay, awesome. So let's say dot main container. Dot main container. I'll give it a max width of 1150 pixels, and I'll give it a width of 100%, and I'll give it a margin of 0 auto, margin 0 auto. Awesome. And then I'll give it a padding of 0 top and bottom, 1 left and right. Okay, so that it does that into our site, so everything aligns within that site. So as we scroll up, as you can see, it's now being contained by that maximum width of 1150 pixels. So that's exactly what we wanted to do. Perfect. So moving along, let's now style the hero section, or the hero section, the section that you see on above the fold. Hero section, and say minimum height. I'm gonna calculate this, so I'm say calc and 100 viewpoint height minus 10m. So it should take over pretty much everything on our site. So the minimum height, and then we do just to make sure we have typed in our section correctly. So hero section, okay, that's fine. So the minimum height is that, and the padding is going to be 3m on top and bottom, 0 left and right, and then we'll give it a display of flex and an align item center, and a position of relative. Perfect, guys, perfect. Awesome. So this is our view, this is what we see. Okay, and moving along, we're gonna need to target the hero container. Once we've targeted it, we're gonna give it a max width though of 650 pixels. So that becomes the max width of the hero container. After that, we now need to target the hero top section, just the top section of the hero section. The font size is going to be a little bit bigger than that, so it's 1.5m, just to make it a little bit bigger. And we now want to target the hero section, or the hero top section span. This one is a different color. Oops, it's not column, it's color. There we go. Far accent color. Save it in. There we go, guys. So that's how you do it. All right. Not many lines, but that's perfect. That's awesome. Let's now work on the hero title. So I can say dot hero title, and the hero title, we have a font size of 3m. 3m should be enough. A font weight of 700. So we're taking this, the bold font, and then the line height, or not the list start. This is not a list. The line height is going to be 1. There we go. That looks beautiful. Okay, moving along, we're gonna target the hero subtitle. Okay, so subtitle. So the subtitle will have font size of 2m and an opacity of 0.7. There we go. So that's awesome. Awesome. Perfect. maybe with a line height as well. Maybe 1. It's gonna do. Perfect. So the line height again of 1. Moving along, let's now target the CTA because my paragraph is pretty much perfect. I like how it looks. Let's just compare with the site. Yeah, looks fine by me. We should be comparing on the mobile. Yeah, that looks fine by me. Okay, let's just pull this in. There we go. So let's just target the CTA. So I'm going to say custom CTA, and inside our custom CTA, we're going to give it a padding first of 6 pixels. The reason why I'm using pixels is most of these measurements are exact. So height of 40 pixels, not a neck background, a background of background. Oops, guys, of light color. Awesome. And we need a display of inline flex. We want to align our items center, and we also want to give it a border radius of 40 pixels. So the reason why I've given my height of 40 pixels because I want to give it another border radius again of 40 pixels. So as you can see, our stuff is coming out perfectly, but it's not aligned the way we want it to align. Okay, but we're gonna achieve that quite shortly. So let's now target the SVG. So custom CTA SVG, and the SVG's fill. Just pull this up so you guys can see. It's going to be var text color. Once I've done that, I'm going to give it a margin of 0 and a maybe not transition yet. Let's give it a width of 0 by default because it's not going to show, and a padding of 0 as well, and the transition is going to be all 0.5 seconds is in out. I'll show you what I'm doing in a minute. Okay, now we want to target the span that's right inside our custom call to action. So let's target the span. Right, once we've targeted the span, we want to give it a display or flex and an align items center and justify content center, so we can justify our content right in the middle. The color by default is going to be BG color, so the background color, BG color, no, not the light color, the darker one. Yeah, that one. Perfect. Custom CTA. I need to figure out why my span isn't working. If I go into my file, I've got a span that's here. Is it refreshing? Yes, it is. Custom CTA. Did I type it correctly? Custom CTA SVG. Awesome. BG color. The color should have changed, but let's continue. Let's see what's going on. Background. I'm just going to test it out and say red. Okay, now I'm not sure. Background. Save it in. It is working. That's awesome. It is working. I'm not sure why the color hasn't picked up, but we should be able to just see var BG color. I see. var, okay, BGCRI. There we go. That should be able to solve it. Awesome. So we can say var accent becoming the background, and we want to give it a padding. The padding of top and right of 0 and left and right of 1.5 em. That does that to it. And then we want to give it a font size of 13 pixels and a height of 28 pixels. And the last thing on this tab is a border radius of 28 pixels. Save that in. That creates something beautiful. I think it looks great. Okay, let's now target every section. And then on every section though, we need a padding top of 6em and a left and right of 0. So that way it just gives us space, some space on the top. Okay, awesome. The next thing is to target the section titles. Okay, so I'm just gonna say section title, and the section title is gonna have a font size of 1.75 em and a font weight of 700 and a margin bottom of 1.5 em. Save that in. Perfect. I'm going to target the before of the element, and then the before is going to have a content of / and I will need a color of var accent color, and I'm gonna put in a margin right so that I can just push the content further. So there we go. So that's the section title for us. Okay, so I'm not gonna touch the paragraphs. I think they look just fine. I will though touch the what do you call it, the technology cards themselves. So I'm just gonna say technologies, technology cards, margin top and bottom of 0, right of 0 and bottom of 2em. So that's top 0, right 0 and bottom of 2em. So that just gives some space underneath the cards. So from there, I'm gonna create the technology cards. So that's the span, the cards themselves. Okay, so the span is gonna have a display of inline flex and a padding of 0.3em, top and bottom, and then 1.5 left and right. Okay, so I'm just gonna give a margin again of 0.2em, 0.2em, top and bottom, margin 0.2 across rather. I think that's fine. And then the font size is going to be 1em, and then the background is going to be var light color. Save it in. Perfect. And then the border radius, border radius is going to be 2em. That's awesome. And then the cursor is going to be cursor of pointer, so that when I hover on top of them, they'll be of a pointer of cursor. Okay, so next is I need to target the span on hover. All right, so when we hover on top of the span, I want them to change color. So the background first, background is going to be var accent color, and then the base color, is going to be var maybe BG. There we go. So when I do have on top of them, it does that. But it is like jumping from one color to the next color. So I want to put in like a nice transition between when we hover. So I'm just going to say transition all 0.35 seconds, easy in out, save. So as soon as I've done that, you see it does it in a subtle way. It comes in, it transits in, transit out. Perfect. So that's the left side of the about section. Now, the right side of the about section, we have an image wrapper. So let's just say image wrapper. And the image wrapper is going to have a width of 100%. Oops, 100%. And it needs a max width of 300 pixels and a padding of 0.5 em and a margin of 0 auto, and we need a border on this thing, so 1 pixel solid, and it's going to be of color FA. So it's not really white, it's really close to white, but that will work. Okay, the display is going to be flex because I want to center pretty much everything inside, which is our image. And justify tracks, justify content of center, and a border radius of the border radius is going to be 5 pixels. The transition in this case is going to be all 0.35 s for 4 seconds, and then easy in out. And just so that before we forget, the cursor is going to be pointer. So when we come on top of the image, it should give us a pointer. As you can see, the image though is overlapping the wrapper. So there's several ways to do this. Either we can just say overflow hidden. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but yeah, it does work. Overflow of hidden, so that we can just clip the image. But as you can see, this doesn't work. This is not the best way to do it. Okay, so the best way to do it is to say image wrapper, and then I'll target the image itself, give it a width of 100%, and after the width of 100%, let's give it a height of auto. Awesome, you see that? So as soon as you give an image a width of 100% and a height of auto, it becomes responsive. Perfect, guys, perfect. So let's give it a border radius of 5 pixel and an opacity of 0.2. There we go. That's amazing. The transition is going to have a delay of 2 seconds or 0.2 seconds, and all 0.35 seconds and linear. So it's gonna go linear, and then, or maybe let's just use ease in and out. So that's gonna work. So when we hover on top of the image wrapper, what do we want it to do? The first thing we wanted to do is to give a padding of 1 em. Okay. The next thing we wanted to do is to transform and scale up. So we're going to scale it. Scale. Come on. Scale of 1.1 maybe. That looks fine. So as soon as I hover, it does that to the image. Maybe 1.1 because maybe it is a bit big. Maybe 1.06 would do, I think. Yeah, 1.06 is perfect. No, it's not working. Yep, that's perfect. That's amazing. And then the border color is going to change to var accent color. There we go. So when we hover on this, it does that. It changes. It does that. So the next thing that we need to do is change the opacity of the image when we hover as well. So I'm going to say when we hover, and I'll target the image, and opacity becomes 1, so that we can be able to see the image. So it delays for 2 seconds, and then it goes. There we go. So that's where the delay is coming in, the 0.2 seconds. So when we hover into it, delays, and we hover that, it does that. I think it looks beautiful. Okay, so after that, let's now take a look at the experience section with the tab titles and the tab content. Okay, so the first thing that we need to target is the tab titles themselves. So tab titles, I'll give them a display of flex and a margin bottom of 1em, margin bottom of 1em, and then overflow X, because I wanted to flow on the X axis. So if you take a look at this, the design, we have these cards overflowing this way. So we want them to be able to overflow this side, and I want them to only overflow on the X axis. Okay. Awesome. So once we've done that, then we target one tab title. So the each tab title, we have these values. So the padding is going to be 0.5em, and on top and bottom and left and right is going to be 1em. Perfect. So as you can see now, it's scrolling horizontally. So if you wanted to know how to do that, that's how you do it. Okay, perfect. And then the font size will be 1em. The margin right, it's going to be again 1em. The background is going to be var light color. Okay, the border radius will be 0.3, maybe 3em. Let's save that in. Let's see. That looks amazing. I like that. And then the cursor, again, pointer. Cursor is the pointer. Let's just put in some transitions before we forget. All 0.35 seconds, and ease in and out. And then the white space, we'll have a no wrap. So that allows us to have a one line text. Okay, the margin bottom is going to be 1em. Oops. And the minimum width that we need on this on these titles is going to be 160 pixels. Looks amazing. Looks beautiful. Okay. As we go in, we say tab title on hover, and tab title when it has an active class. The background will need to change to a var accent color, and the color itself, will need to be var bg color, not the light one, the darker one, CRR, like so. So as you can see, if I hover on top of these ones, it has that effect to them. Okay, awesome. After that, we need to target the job card. So the job card will have a padding of 1em, and a border of 1 pixel, like so. Border of 1 pixel solid, actually. Just say solid, and then RGB. 0.5. There's the opacity. Then that's what it does. Awesome. So let's just give it a border radius. Let's just stay consistent with our 5 pixels. And by default, this display is none. So that's gonna disappear. But don't you worry, because if we target the job card again, when it's active, the display is block. Okay. There we go. Comes back. Now let's target the job title. All right, the job title. In this case, it's going to be font size. It's going to have a font size of the font size maybe 1.5 M, and the font weight of 600. And let's target the span inside of the job card, and then the color is going to be var accent color. There we go, accent color. Right, awesome. That looks good. Let's now target the responsibilities. Okay, the responsibilities. Dot responsibilities. Oops. Responsibilities. Responsibilities li. Yeah, let's target the li, and let's give it an opacity of 0.7, and also let's give it a margin of 1M. So margin 1M on all sides. A display of block, and we need to give it a padding, maybe padding left, actually padding left of 2M, and then a position of relative. After the position of relative, the font size is going to be 0.8 M, just so it becomes smaller. There we go, guys. That looks nice. So the reason why we've done a padding of padding left of 2M is we want to include a pseudo element before on the li items. So the content of the pseudo element is going to be / like so, and the position is going to be absolute like so, and then the left will be 0, and the color of the pseudo element or the content is going to be var accent color, which will do that to it. And that's about it. That looks pretty much done. That looks good, guys. That looks good. So before we do that, let's target the work section, or the whole section, so that we can create our grid. So I'm just gonna say work section, and the display is going to be of grid, and the grid template columns is going to be 100%. So by default, it's going to just take over the whole space, and the gap is going to be 10 pixels. So once we've done that, that just takes care of our grid. Once our grid is ready, let's target the work card itself. So the single card that we need to target. So the work card is going to have a background of like color, and a padding of 1M, and a border radius of 5 pixels. Save that in, so that does that. Okay, so we have the card top, right at the top of the card. So I'm just going to say work top like so, and give it a display of flex, And after the display of flex, let's justify our content space between, like so. And then the margin bottom will be 1em. Okay, perfect. Now let's target the folder. Okay, the folder. If we go into our card, or the work card, which is this one, we have this SVG that's here. So I'm just gonna give this one a class or folder so that we can be able to target it, right? And I'll give the other one as well a class of, a class of folder. Okay, so we go back to our CSS and we want to give it a fill of, this one gets an accent color, so that looks great. We do want to give it a height though of 2em and a width of 2em as well. So once we do that, that becomes a bit smaller. Next, we want to target the work top, the span, and the SVG right inside. The fill is going to be white, so that's the var text color. The height is going to be 1em, and the width is going to be 1em as well. Okay, awesome. So starting to look nice. Don't you agree, guys? That's awesome. So work. I'm now going to target the work title. The work title will have a font size of 1.5em and a line height of I don't know, maybe 1.2. Yeah, that kind of works. And after we do that, let's target the paragraph, because I think it should be a little bit smaller than what we're seeing here. The font size is going to be 0.8em. I'm not sure if that looks smaller to you guys, but yeah, that looks fine. Yeah, that looks okay. And then the work technologies. So the work technologies. Maybe target the spans only, since there's some space that's there already. So the spans, give it a padding, and the padding is going to be 0 top and bottom, and 0.5em left and right, just to give it some space. Just so that I can confirm the class names. You're never sure, right? Paste it in. There we go. Now it looking far much better. Then the font weight, in our case, is going to be 400. So I'll roll it back to 400. And then the contact section is now the stuff that we need to do right at the bottom. Okay. So next we do the contact section. The contact section. The contact section is gonna have a background of light color. If I save that in, you'll see shows in quite good. And then let's target the H1. I could target the H1 on its own, but well, you can never know. H1, the font size will be, in this case, 3em, and the margin will be 0, and the padding will be 0, and then we save it in. So that does that to our margin, our line. Okay, fantastic. So by default, this looks fine. And then we have the contact. That's the paragraph that's underneath the contact section. So I'm just going to say contact section, the paragraph. I'll remove the margin top 0 so that it collapses in a little bit. And then the last thing is the contact section dot custom. Maybe there's no need for us to call the custom section, so we can say custom CTA and then dot doc. So we have two variances here. So the first variant is when it has a light background, and the second variant is when it has the dark background. So the dot doc rather, it's gonna have a var bg color, which is in our case this one. That looks beautiful. So the last thing that we need to target is the footer. So the footer, we need to target the paragraph. Okay, so inside the footer we need to target the paragraph, and the paragraph is going to have a font size will be 0.8 em, just so that it can become smaller than what it is now. So that's about it, guys. We've done pretty much the whole site from top to bottom in mobile, but however, you see that when I pull it to tablet mode, it's not really responding the way we want it to respond. Because if we take a look at the site, we have two modes, right? We've got the mobile and we've got the desktop. So let's work on making it responsive for desktop as well. So the reason why we've done the mobile first is we should design our websites for mobile first, and then we work our way up. All right. So to do that, let's say responsive design. To do that, we use what we call media queries. Okay. So the first media query that we need is to say maybe at media, and then minimum width of 650 pixels. Yeah, 650 pixels. And we'll target the work section, so you can continue writing your normal CSS right inside. So the work section in this case is going to have a grid template columns of 1 FR, 1 FR. So it will only show 2 items in a row at that breakpoint. Okay. So if you go back to a view, now you see it shows 2 items. If you go back to mobile, it shows that. But of course, as we go up the ladder, it should start showing 3 or so. So like that. So we can show 3 of those. So to do that, again, we'll now go on to the next breakpoint. So that's the first breakpoint. So the next breakpoint is 768 pixels. And let's copy our work section. And after we've copied our work section, we want to add on 1 FR. Okay, let's just save that in. Oops. Don't close, don't open. Awesome. All right, so by default now, you see when you go on desktop, it shows 3 items. Okay, and when we go on 650, 2 items, and then mobile, 1 item. That's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted to do. Right, as we scroll through our page, or as we go down our page, I'm going to target the toggle now, because the toggle should go away on desktop. So if I do this, you see that the toggle is gone. The toggle is gone. Perfect. Now the nav itself, it needs to come back to position. So position relative, and The next thing is to remove the background from the nav because now it's unset, and the right will be unset as well. And we also want to target the width to be unset, because on mobile it has a target, it has a width of 100%, so we don't want that width to exist in on desktop. So we're going to say site nav. In the site nav we'll have a display of flex, so that we can our items can go in horizontally. And then the site nav LIA tag will have an opacity of 0.7, and we need to give it a padding of top and bottom of 3M and left and right of 1M. Okay, that just spaces our stuff a little bit. White spacing is very important. Let's just put in a transition just before we forget. All 0.35343S, and then ease in out. And then why we want to do that is because when we hover, we want to change the opacity. Okay, when we hover, we want to change the opacity to 1, like so. So you come back, see it's coming in from a 0 point something, 0.7 opacity to an opacity of 1. Okay, moving along, we now want to target the resume button. The resume button has a class of btn, and we want to target margin left of 0.5m, and we want to target the border, not the border, the border of 1 pixel solid var accent color. Perfect. If we save that in, you'll start to see that it has a border right there. The border radius, we're just going to stay consistent. The border radius is going to be 5 pixels. That's the border radius we've been using across the project. And then the transition again, but since we do have a transition again, there's no need for us to put a transition on this one. But when we do have on top of the button, we want it to change colors, or to change the background and the text color. Okay, so to do that, we say background like so, and then we change it to the accent color, and then the color itself changes to BG color like so. Save that in. So when I come in and hover on top of this one, it looks that's beautiful, guys. That's amazing. So let's now work on the hero section. Like you see, when I go on the site itself, there is this item right that's coming in right there. Okay, so for us to do that, I'm just gonna copy and paste from my old project. So I'm just gonna paste it like so. Once you've got it, it will show right there. So let's now work on the hero section. So that's hero section after studio element. The content is going to be of nothing. The background image is going to have a URL, and we're going to map it to the core.png. So by default, it's not going to show on the site. By default, it won't show on the site because we haven't given it a width and a height. But before we do that, let's just say background size. I want it to contain the image, and then the background repeat. I don't want it to repeat the image. Background repeat, no repeat. And underneath there, we're just going to give it now a width of 30 for viewpoint width, and a height of 30 viewpoint width as well. So I'm just going to calculate the viewpoint width and do that. Same, it's a position, and I'm gonna make it absolute, and absolute right of 0, and in opacity by default is gonna come in at 0.1, and a Z index of 1, just so that it goes on top, on underneath our content. I'll show you just now. And then all the transition is going to be all 0.5 s is in and out. That's perfect, guys. That's awesome. That's awesome. And then after that, we wanted after when we hover, right? So when you say hero section pseudo element, when we hover, and we want to target the after tag. The after tag will change this opacity from 0.1 to 0.3. Okay, we will transform the element and scale it up to 1.1, just a subtle scale, and the cursor on top will be a pointer. So the reason why we're doing this is when we hover on top of the element, we should be able to get that effect. Beautiful. Awesome guys. Next is we want to now put the hero content on top of the hero pseudo element. So let's just take care of that. So container, the Z index is going to be 2. So perfect. Next thing is the hero title. So the hero title looks a bit bigger on desktop than it is on mobile. So we're gonna say font weight. Well, the font weight is the same. Maybe the font size 5M. We're done with that one. And then we do the hero subtitle, and the hero subtitle will have a font size of 3M, like so. Hero subtitle, we do have another one. Oh yeah, font size, that's why it didn't work. Font size of that's perfect, guys. And then let's work on the about section. The about section. So the about section is going to have a display of flex, and then we're going to align our item center like so. So as we go, like you see, when we're on mobile, the text is on top of the image, but when you're on desktop, we want it to be side by side. So let's now work on the left side of the section. So that's the about content. So I'm just going to say about content. The about content will have a width of 60% and a padding right, so we can push content a little bit. The padding right of 2M. That should do. There we go, guys. So look at that. That's amazing. Nice. Pretty solid. So let's now work on the experience section. So therefore, the experience section, the tab layout is going to have a display of flex, and no, it's already display of flex. Yeah, tab layout is display of flex. That's great. And I think we should say the tab titles, or maybe the flex direction of the items. Tab layout, display of flex, and then the flex direction of row. Okay, now, and then the tab titles. The tab titles will have a flex direction flex direction of column, and then the overflow X, we need to unset that in because we don't need it anymore. There we go. There we go. So tab layout. Oops. This should be titles, not title. There we go. It's perfect, guys. Perfect. And then next, we want to make our navigation work, because we're pretty much done with our website. Because when we do this, it pretty much shows you everything that we need. Or maybe before we do that, let me just put in the projects, the previous projects that she has done. Maybe just make them 6 of them. I think it's card, project card or job card. No. Work card actually. So let's just copy this one and that one. These are 2 items, so that's 4 and 6. So if we do save them in, we should see 6 items exactly working the way we want it to work. When we have on top of these ones, we'll fix this just now, and then we should be able to collapse when we need to collapse, like so. But now let's make the tabs work. Okay, so we want it when somebody clicks on the toggle, it should work. So let's work on that. Okay, so this has to do with our JavaScript as well. So let's say when we nav open, the right side should be 0 and the Z index should be 0, maybe 99 as well. So just so that we can make sure. I think it was set on 100, and it should be fine with right of 0 by default. So when the nav is open, it does that. The right becomes 0 rather. Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna work on the hover effect on the get in touch items. Okay, so for us to do that, I'm gonna head on over back to a custom CTA, which is this one, and I'm going to say dot custom CTA, and when we hover on top of it, we want to target the SVG because that's what we collapsed here when we give it a width of 0. Okay, so the default width in our case is going to be 1M, and the height is going to be 1M as well. So that should be able to give us a solution, but let's do a margin of 0 on top and 0.8 on the left and right. So when I hover on top of that looks amazing, guys. That looks beautiful. That looks amazing. And one more thing, guys, if we go back to our tab, this toggle that's right here, it has a color of that accent color. Okay, so for us to achieve that, I'm gonna have to find the toggle and the SVG. The fill isn't really this one, it's the accent color, like so. So there we go. So now let's work on the navigation menu. I'm gonna create a new file and I'm gonna call it script.js. So inside of my script.js, that's where I'll put in my JavaScript logic. Okay, so the first thing I'll need to do is create the nav. So I'll say let nav be equal to let nav be equal to document dot query selector, and in our case I want to select the nav. So once we've done the nav, let's open the nav. Okay, so we're gonna say document dot query selector again. In this case I want to take the open class. Not sure if I had created it. Let me search for it. Toggle. Yeah, toggle. We've got open and cancel. So open, then add event listener, and when we click, I'm gonna put in an arrow function. Terminate. I like to terminate my code. Nav dot class list dot toggle. So we're gonna toggle nav open. So remember the class that we just created underneath the JavaScript, this one. There we go. So it just changes from a right of negative 80 viewpoint width to right of 0. So actually should work. Oh, okay. We haven't linked our JavaScript file in our HTML. So to do that, we go right at the bottom of the file, just before the ending of the body tag, and I'll say script with a source, and I'll say script.js. .js, like so. Once I've done that, I'm just going to make sure I refresh my page. If I click on this one, it should open, but now we can't close the tab. So for that to work, we go back to our page and say close, and then pretty much copy everything that we've done on the open, and in this case say cancel. That should work. Awesome. See guys, that works fantastic. Now we want to work on the tab layout. So for the tab layout, I'm gonna create a new function, and I'm gonna call it a change tab, and it's gonna be equal to, we're gonna pass in an event, and we'll pass in an ID. Maybe just call it E. I don't know why it's shouting at me. Oops, guys, it's been a long day. E. Okay, there we go. Awesome. So once we've done that, we're gonna create some few variables. So I'm gonna say tab content, and I'm gonna create tab links. So the tab content is gonna be equal to document dot get elements by class name, and I'm gonna get the elements with a class name job card. Okay, once we've done that, I'm gonna loop through them. Come on, Emmett, give me something. For, there we go, index. I'm just gonna loop through my tab content, and I will replace my well, doesn't really matter. And inside, I'm going to say tab content, and I'll take the position index, and I'll say class list, remove the active class. So I'm going to remove all the active classes in all the divs. Okay. Next is I'm going to take in the tab link. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it in, copy that, do it this way. Yeah, that should be it. But however, it's no longer job card, it's now tab title. Awesome. That should be it. And then we should say that on the event itself, we take the current target, the targeted item, or the clicked item, the current target dot class list. I'm gonna add in an active class to it, And then after that, I'm going to say document dot get elements element by ID, and then I'll pass in the ID that I've passed into the file, and then from there I'm going to say class list and add, and to the class list I'm going to add active. Okay. For this then to work, because right now if I go to my site, if I click on Apple, it's not changing Apple. So how to do it is we need to say on click, we need to pass in, or call rather, the function. So I'm going to say Apple again. Let's do this and say on click. On click, it's going to be change tab, and the first one is the event, and then the second one is Facebook, and we close the bracket. So that should work together with this one. This one is going to be Apple. So if I refreshed, you see now it changes from Facebook to Apple and Apple to Facebook. I'm not going to put in Amazon, so you guys can be able to do that yourselves. But again, it works on all screen sizes. Looks like we are almost done. Just a few things that I've noticed is when I do click on my work there, it scrolls through to the section, but it doesn't close the navigation. So for us to do that, let's just clean up our code a little bit. So I'm going to say let navs, or the navigation items, be document dot get elements by class name, and we have site link. We don't need the dot. Site link. Site link. No. Let's say for, I think it's pretty much the same as this one. Navs, like so. So inside the nav, inside the loop, what we're going to do though is we're going to say navs, oops guys, sorry, navs index, position index. Yeah, I've been recording for a very long time. Add event listener, and what event do we want to listen to? It's the click event, and we'll pass in an arrow function, and then say nav, which is the navigation that we have called, and we will toggle the nav down. Save. So now if we click that, if we click experience, it should go to experience but also close the tab. So if you have reached this part, congratulations, you are now a software engineer or a front-end developer. So what's the next step? You want to plug in your backend, you want to get APIs, JavaScripts, all the complexities of web design. I want to make all those complexities simple for you. So what I need you to do right now is to hit the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be creating this course and walking you through step by step on how I will turn you into a full stack developer. Until then, happy hacking.